The story begins as someone ponders that something is strange here. This article in the newspaper. Marcos Manet died instantly during a carriage accident. The person wonders if it was an attack or an accident. On Monday, a count died by an accident, slipping and falling to death. On Tuesday, an officer died after he fell from his horse. And on Wednesday, a cruise ship sank and the leader of the merchants died. On Thursday, a young lady died from poisoning that happened during a tea party. Since then, on Friday and on Saturday, and even on Sundays, there were such accidents, leading to death. The woman ponders that this is already the 7th this week. She finds it really strange. She thinks that these are not her doings, at the time when the monsters who could not coexist with any other living race threatened the empire. At the time when all were ready to give up due to the huge difference in strength, someone shouted stop. It was a saint who could communicate with the monsters, and so appeared at the time. A saint who saved the empire and met the love of her life. There came the present of the villainess who loomed over her future like a dark cloud. The former saint, Thysbelize of Calixt. She thought that everything she had was taken away by the saint, thinking that the saint had taken her place. The villainess began to hold a grudge, caught in her ludicrous delusions. Out of spite, she harassed the new saint through various methods. But every single time, the saint overcame the dangers thrown her way in a wise manner. The villainess was frustrated knowing that is not how it should be. She thought if only that saint could vanish. The villainess thought that if the saint could vanish, then she could become the real saint. However, her last efforts were in vain. The execution of the villainess, this Belize of Calixt, is being carried out. And that is how she ended up getting executed, and the kind and beautiful saint lived happily ever after with her loved one in a world with no evil. The story is the flower that tamed the monster. At first, she did not even realize that she was reincarnated into this book, but then she remembered. At 24 years of age, she was a normal college student in South Korea. She was hit by a car on her way back home, and when she opened her eyes again, a man questions if this is Thisbe. The other responded, yes, she is indeed her. It turns out that she found consciousness, not in a hospital but in a cradle. A man told her that she looks so much like her mother. He hoped that she could be like her father too. She wondered who are these people, thinking if it is a dream. The butler called out to his grace, telling him that in this life he did not think that she will look like her father. He responded, that's right, with a worrisome look. He has always wondered what the legacy that he will leave behind will look like. She realizes that it's way too realistic to be a dream. She wondered if she had been reincarnated. Realizing that she was born in a very rich family, she wonders, and then what happens? She'd heard that her parents died right after her birth. She thinks that her paths are already full of thorns. The man questions, still isn't this child chosen by the oracle? She's shocked as she hears them say that she should be born to save the world and become their empire's glory. She questions to herself, what does that mean? They state that the name Calixt will shine forever, the girl of the Calixt family that will save the empire from danger. When she woke up in this unknown world, she was confused for a moment. But it turned out that she was reincarnated into the body of someone special who got the oracle. So she had no choice but to grow up as the saint, the one who was meant to save the empire. Starting with swordsmanship training, the empire's language, foreign language, the language of nobles, and all other kinds of studies. She wonders, isn't it a bit too much? She thinks that, of course, since she was reincarnated in this body normally at this age, she should be loved as long as she does well. The maids asks her to please focus. She trembles as she focuses, knowing that she is sure this education is forced upon her because of the pressure from her grandfather. She still finds it abuse. After living like this here for several years, she suddenly got that strange sense of déjà vu. She thinks that the flow seems so familiar. She thinks that it seems as if she has seen this before. She wonders, isn't this the same story as in Monster Flower? She realizes that this is the same path as the villainess in the book. She is aware that in 6 years, if things go according to the book's original story, she is sure that she will die. She realizes this is her exact date, and only then did she realize she was in the book. She seems taken aback as she wonders, what did she ever work so hard for then? Just because of the wrong oracle? In fact, the oracle was not completely wrong, but the real saint was not her. It was the daughter of distant collateral family of the Calixt, and the story's main protagonist. It was Estelle Lair. The maid steps in, informing her that the carriage is ready, and she questions how long do they have left. The maid tells her that there is still enough time. She informs the maid that they should wait as she'll be out soon. When the memories of her past life returned, she felt completely lost. she has been surrounded like this since she was young. She wonders if this would make sense that there is actually another person chosen. She thinks that just because she has the favor of God, she still cannot believe that she will lose her position after working so hard all her life. She is aware that if she didn't have her past memories, she would have gone mad. Fistpin Monster's flower did not bully Estelle in the beginning, after being called a liar and a villainess by the people around her. She was left heartbroken and started to turn villainous. But she is aware that it was Thisbe in the book and not her. She tells the carriage man to take her to the cafe she always goes to and asks for something before he questions if she wants the newspaper, telling her that he has prepared it. She thanks him as she sits inside, thinking that if this was not her position, she would be grateful. She mentions "let's go" as she decides that she will live her life to the fullest. She wonders how much has she worked just for that. She knows that even the nobles argue about everything, and even if these rumors are about her, she'll try to make it as smooth as possible, and she will succeed to live freely on her own. She will do good deeds and walk the flowery path with no envy in her heart. She thinks that now that the heart work is over, the flowery path is bright. That is what she had thought, but instead extras still died off like normal. She suddenly realized that they were dying, all the people who mocked this. She wonders why do these people keep dying when she did not even touch them. She wonders where did she go wrong. She thinks that her dream of a comfortable life collapsed in an instant. She wonders when did it all end up going wrong. She decides to think about it and is aware that she tried her very best trying to live a good life, and things had been going so well so far, until it was recently revealed that Estelle was a real saint. 1 month ago, the monster flower finally began in earnest, a hunting party hosted by the imperial family where nobles would attend. People ran asking for help, and Estelle tamed the vicious monster as planned. She questioned, "Is everyone all right?" And this is when the true main character had been revealed. She told them that they all seemed to be startled by the sudden loud noise and stated that everything will be all right since it had been sorted out. People were amazed as that monster that would take a whole army of guards to take down was that easily tamed. They began to whisper, questioning, could it be that their saint isn't Princess Calixt but Estelle? As well as questioning if she began to act like a saint all this time, mentioning that now that they think about it, Princess Calixt and Estelle are the same age, and they were certain that their saint was Estelle, questioning that if Thisbe had showed them her powers before, questioning what will happen to her now. She was aware that this was going to happen, the fact that everything she had endured so far as a saint of an oracle was for nothing, and it makes her feel quite lonely. She always knows that, which is probably why Thisbe in the novel tried to defend herself, since she would have wanted to prove her worth in any way possible. However, she was not stupidly going to roll into their trap. People whispered, questioning if she was intending to defend herself, mentioning that everyone saw how she was treating Estelle, who on earth would listen to a fake saint. Thisbe called out to Estelle, stepping towards her as she mentioned that she was so great, as thanks to her everyone was able to make it out safe and alive, mentioning that she had such a special power and she might actually be the oracle's saint as she grabbed Estelle's hand. People were taken aback as they had thought she was going to protest or anything and did not think that she was going to admit it this fast. She was aware that it's much more noisy than she had thought. She was aware that there was no good in staying here any longer and becoming more involved. She excused herself as she turned around and pondered that this much should be enough to end everything. This is what she had thought, and everything was good until then, and she was about to give up her title as the saint and start living a quiet life. But she had never thought that people who had bad blood with her would end up dying. She thinks that they're gonna accuse her for their deaths in a heartbeat. Someone questioned what on earth happened. As her attention turned towards the front, realizing that she forgot she was with him because she was distracted so much by the paper, he called out to her and informed her that he will assist her in any way possible, so if she has any concerns, she should feel free to let him know. He's Thor Armand Salvatore, Thisbe's fiance and the villain in Monster Flower. She was stunned as she responded that there was nothing such as that. She mentioned that she must have gotten very immersed in the paper and apologized to him. She thought that he was a man who was so gentle to foolishly see the good side of people. He told her that there's no need to apologize, as she always liked to read the paper during their tea time. She thinks that he, who is gentle and kind, could not bear to turn his back on this, even in the novel. He told her that he was okay, so she could please make herself comfortable. In the end, he stays besides this, but is taken advantage of and dies. In the novel, Thisbe finds out that Estelle was the real saint and devises a plan to eliminate her. She wonders that Estelle is going to light this year's National Foundation fire. She is aware that she cannot let what is hers taken away like this. She tells Thor that she cannot bear to see Estelle at the beacon tower at the festival instead of her. She asks him to please make sure that she stays quiet just for the time being. She asked him to pour this into Estelle's teacup. Thor, who had a weak heart for Thisbe, could not refuse. However, only believing in Thisbe's words and poisoning Estelle was against his ethics, so Thor decided to try it for himself. Surprisingly, he woke up after exactly 3 days, as Thisbe said. He thought that he knew it, that she did not have any evil intentions. Thor believed this and tainted Estelle's tea, and Estelle, who had drunk the substance, which turns into poison when mixed with the ingredients of the tea, fell into deep sleep. And Thisbe was eventually imprisoned for the elimination of a saint. And he still continued to stay on Thisbe's side, knowing that he had been tricked. When she was reading the book, she thought who would do such foolish things. She is aware that now that she is meeting him in person, he is not foolish, he is kind and innocent, and even responsible on top of that. She regrets thinking that he was a foolish person who just believed everyone. He calls out to her and mentions that it is the first time she has reacted this way while reading a newspaper. He questions if he could ask what article caused her concern, because he finds it hard to watch her suffer on her own. She is amazed by his brightness as she ponders, if this isn't Angel, then who is? She mentions that it's really nothing. She thinks, how could such a kind and innocent person exist in this world? She cannot believe that this man is her fiancé. She shows him and mentions that it's because of this article. It's the one which states that Marquise Manette passed away due to a carriage accident. She mentions that, as he can tell, it was quite random. It was an accident caused by the carriage wheels coming loose, but she knows that something seems off. Thor tells her that it says the carriage was made for Marquise Manette 1 week before the incident, so it should be impossible. She responds that is right. So there are a lot of theories, as a lot of people think that it was not an accident. His expression suddenly turns cold as he asks if people think that she is the culprit. He mentions that they must think that she is the culprit since all the victims had come in contact with her recently. He asks if that is right. He questions what kind of nonsense article is this. She tells him that on the outside it does look elaborate. Even if the fact that she came in contact with them is true, she questions, weren't they the first who attacked first? Everyone said that she was the Oracle's daughter, but she just ended up being a con artist. And now she is happily watching the opera with her fiancé without a care in this world. She's aware that in conclusion, the noble lady who insulted her in the salon and Marquise Manette, who started the fight, both died, but she knows it really doesn't make her happy. Since she was accused of their death without even lifting a finger, she is aware that she feels better after talking about it with Thor. After it was revealed that Estelle was truly the Saint, Thisbe was truly left alone. Everyone would greet her time to time, but that was it. She is aware that it was quite lonely. As soon as Thor saw the article, he believes in Thede's desperate words, which she is really thankful to him. She tells him that it is okay as she is innocent and the truth will come out soon, so he should not worry about it. He responds that he is aware of that, but the harsh words that she receives are terrifying to him. She looks deep into his eyes, pondering that those eyes are cheating. She holds onto him as she tells him that she is fine. So he really doesn't need to stress about it. He mentions that she always says that she is fine, and that makes him more afraid since he is worried he won't when she isn't. She responds that she is aware of that and thanks him for worrying about her. She states that she is really fine as he asks if she is sure. She responds, of course, she is, as she plans on catching the true culprit behind these deaths. There is another reason why she must catch the criminal. It will become an obstacle to her goal. People whom she didn't touch are dying, and she is being suspected of their deaths. There is only one thing in this reality that is going according to the original story. She is aware that there is no answer here and thinks let's be exiled. She cannot believe that she is thinking about this without even trying to fight. It may seem like an extreme attempt, but this is the best solution that she came up with after experiencing this reality. A few days ago, she's in bed as she thinks that this book is extremely harsh on the villainous Thisbe. Unlike Thisbe, in the original story, who committed all kinds of evil deeds, she obediently handed over the title of saint to Estelle. She thought that at least people won't curse at her if she did that and left without a word, but she is aware that the result was more blatant and severe rejection. Unlike this, in the original story, who was somewhat evil, she seemed easygoing and funny. She did not interpret the oracle. It's not like she threatened everyone if they didn't treat her like a saint. She questions, why is everyone blaming her for everything and hating her? Why is she being treated like this? And she is aware that the second thing is that if she continues to be labeled as the suspect, her long-term plan will be doomed. She knows that by looking at the current situation, she will soon be kicked out of the family. They'll think that the successor, who was thought to be a feint, was actually fake. There are even rumors going around that she is a criminal too. She is aware that there is no way the Calixt family, which values honor, would leave her like this. They'll probably try to marry her off to Thor quickly to take control of the Calixt castle. She is aware that if that happens, then, unlike the original, her life may be saved. She thinks that is it. It's obvious that she'll be stuck in her home for the rest of her life. Furthermore, she thinks about Thor wondering what is wrong with him. She's aware that in the first place, the engagement was an agreement of the elders of the Dukes of Salvatore. She does not want to leave anything to Thor to handle things like this. She's aware that somehow she can easily unfold the abilities she has accumulated. She wonders if there is a place where one can have such a free life again. She realizes that there is, and it sees, Kingdom of Magic. A small country located between 3 inland powers. A kingdom that is more like a huge city than a kingdom. Only a few who can use magic are accepted as members of that nation. Otherwise, it's famous for being famously unwelcoming. Though nobody believed in it, it turned into a lie. She was able to use her abilities as Thisbe too, although it is magical power and not divine power. Both holy power and magical power have the same roots in that they both use mana. Depending on the nature of the mana, it can move according to the owner's will. The only difference is that it is used according to the magic techniques. However, there are very few people who can use it. People on this continent had almost no knowledge of magic or divine power. Because of this, in the novel, used the magical power that she accidentally discovered. Because she is a saint, she completely believed that it is a manifestation of divine power. She thinks that it must have made it even harder to believe that she was a saint. But she also gained something thanks to it. In the novel, Thisbe mistakes her talent in magic for divine power. She secretly and endlessly studied herself in the end. Although in the book she misused this ability to torment Estelle, she died without even knowing her true abilities. She thinks that she does not even know what abilities she has. She is aware how valuable it is though. So she has been honing her magic power according to the contents of the book. And if one has this kind of ability, Seas will welcome them with open arms. The person who enters Seas will be cut off from the original world. It is said that your status and relationships become powerless in Seas. She thinks that after being stoned by everyone in the Empire, what better conditions could be for her? Who is about to be kicked out of her family? She thinks that it is a really cool plan, so she came up with a solution that was perfect for her situation. But she never would have thought that she would be unfairly denied entry into a country like this. While being excited to think about the plan, there was one thing that she had forgotten. That is the final condition to enter Seas. All expatriates should be free of any criminal charges. She is aware that she cannot ruin her plans, as she will be accused of a crime that she didn't even commit. She knows that she will definitely catch those bastards with her own hands. He asks her if she is going to catch the criminal. Mentioning that catching him will be a very dangerous task, she calls out to him, questioning if the is what he is worried about. He responds that is right. She thinks that after all he is a good person. She smiles, mentioning that he doesn't have to worry about that as she is pretty good at swordsmanship as well. He tells her that she can still get injured even if she is good at it. He mentions that she doesn't have to find it alone, and there are many people who can help her even though she is still in the Duke's mansion. He mentions that he does not think that they will be on her side, as she said that during their last meeting. She wonders if she said that. She thinks that just because he usually listens in silence without saying a word, she thought it might have gone out of one ear. She is aware that he has a surprisingly good memory. She wonders at times like these what excuses should she make. She wonders perhaps wasn't it a coincidence that she died. She tells him that if they were to die, once she might understand, but having one die each day raises suspicion. So she states that she cannot just cover up this article and criticize it. She mentions that if she wasn't involved in this, it would have been suspicious. He mentions that she is so kind. She responds she is not really actually, and hopes that this newspaper company goes out of business. She throws it as he mentions that even so, they say there is a lot of influence in that newspaper. He states that it seemed like he left it alone, it would fall on its own. Thor mentions they say it wouldn't be a surprise if they heard news that it was ruined a few days later. She asks him, is that so? She wonders if he means to say they were in such a situation. She thinks that in fact, this newspaper, even in the original version of Monster Flower, reported harshly on Thisbe's evil deeds. There was a description that it was destroyed due to the actions of Thisbe. But in reality, it was in debt. She knows that she's embarrassed, but she was frustrated that she could not do anything. She knows that this might be refreshing. He mentions that she seems to be happy about the news. She responds, yes, surely, it's very good, and even better if they experience a humiliating defeat. He smirks before he states it'll be just like how she wishes. Thisbe announces now all they have to do is catch the culprit. Thor says it seems like she truly wants to find the culprit. She responds that when has she ever lied about such things? She tells him she knows he's worried, but the false accusations must be resolved. After all, she hasn't eliminated the bigwig yet, so she might be taken out soon. She thinks actually this is the biggest issue. According to the order so far, the next would be the son of the Count Lunette, young Master Lunette. She reveals after he tried her but failed due to his inferiority complex towards thought, he became one of the people who argued with her every time they met. The problem is not him, but his father, because these problems began when he turned his back on her. He's the leader among the guards who fight monsters on the border. His influence is truly huge. The biggest reason behind the Kellixt family throwing away Thisbe behind her death was him. She thinks if young Master Lunette dies in such a case, Count Lunette will turn against her before she can determine the truth. She tells him if that happens, she will be confronted, and she cannot let that happen. Thor asks, does that mean that these people don't make her happy? She smiles and says to be honest she is. She feels quite relieved inside. He asks, so what is the problem then? She says the problem is the arrow is pointing at her. Everyone thinks she is the assailant. Thor admits that really baffles him as well. Of course, he thought it had nothing to do with her. She replies she thinks it's because someone dies every day. He smiles, every day. That is the problem. She says yes, a death every day is very suspicious. If it's an accident, it's not so often, then it won't have anything to do with her. So he says if they died in a matter unrelated to her, it would be all good. It doesn't seem like a question, more like an affirmation. He asks her would that leave her at ease. She wonders why is he suddenly asking her that. He sips his tea and replies he will look into it. She thinks she doesn't know what he's referring to, that she guesses it's fine because Thor looks happy for the first time in a while. He places his hand on his chest and promises that he will help her catch the culprit. She thinks she now understands what he meant. He wants to help her. The peaceful emotions of that day started all future problems. Thisbe at that time did not realize it. She did not suspect Thor at all. To Thisbe, that was partly because Thor was a good and honest man, but the biggest reason was Thisbe herself. Thor knew because she's extremely indifferent to the ones around her. Because she was always surrounded by many people, she was tired of people's eyes always on her, so she closed her eyes and ears to them. Thor knows she hasn't realized that. Thisbe smiles at Thor as she tells him it was fun today. He replies he's happy she enjoyed herself as well. She thanks him for always being so kind to her. Thor notices her expression, the same one as somehow lonely, sad one. He wonders what makes her so sad that she looks like this. And why is it that every time she makes that expression, he wants to ask her why is she acting like she's leaving forever. He thinks if she doesn't want to tell him, he won't bother to ask. He only recently figured it out. His face transforms with fury as he wonders how dare these people touch his noble fiancé. When faced with Thor's wrath and fury, those men are begging for mercy, accepting they were wrong, but he just thinks they are allowed even when dying. He says it's so disgusting to see them begging for mercy after they sold her off like this. After he has eliminated the man, he regrets it immediately, believing that he should have eliminated him in a more painful way. Lath, Thor's escort, is waiting outside for him and asks him did he enjoy his meeting. He responds by saying he always asks the obvious. Lath mumbles that's true, but he has been paying attention to his fiancé so much these past few days. He further adds that one thing must be done, but there are always many things to deal with afterwards, and asks if they're going back to the residence now. Thor replies no, looks like this wasn't handled as skillfully as it should have been, so he still has something to take care of. Lath is not delighted because he already worked overtime today. Thor declares he has to go see some debtors. A few days later, Harrington newspaper revealed the ties with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Thisbe thinks is this because of Harrington's big influence and whispers, wow, she's doomed. The maid overhears nevertheless and asks is she talking about the Harrington newspaper. She was shocked too. She thinks no matter how much she wanted them to be disgraced like this, she did not think it would happen in just a few days. The maid wonders how could a large newspaper collapse overnight like this, who knew the boss had so much debt from gambling. Because it was rumored they were stable, everyone was clearly fooled by them. Thisbe agrees, but she says she heard it's really true. The maid asks her did she know. She replies just a bit and thinks she misunderstood something, while the maid thinks secret among nobles. Thisbe says there is a lot when it comes to Harrington. The maid says she will be meeting Duke Thor soon. Isn't this something worth talking about? She flinches and then says it's all right. She thinks her saying she will meet Thor was a lie, but if she did not do this, she wouldn't have been able to get out. She recalls her earlier conversation with her grandfather, who had told her to avoid going out for some time as she knows her public image is not good right now. But she was determined to go in Masterflower. Thisbe wasn't allowed to go out. Her grandfather continued and warned her to refrain from going out for the time being. That will be good for her as well. She knew, although not said directly, but her grandfather meant that it wasn't good for her, who was a suspect of a crime and still went out often. But there was just one exception. Her grandfather allowed her to meet her fiancé, but nothing else. So she lied to her grandfather when she asked for his permission that she was planning to dine with Thor next week. And could she go? He told her to do as she wishes, but to take a maid with her. She knew it was because he wanted her to be watched over by someone, even so she had to go out. Today is the day young Master Lunette will die at the black market auction. She whispers with determination that she must stop this. Thisbe thinks from the moment she met Thor, which was about 2 weeks ago, she started to gather information to prevent the attack. She shows Thor the newspaper and points at the ring and asks him, isn't this ad a bit strange? He asks her what does she mean. She explains that the picture is a ring, but it's written Cat's Desire on it, right? It seems completely unrelated to advertising, and the combination on the letter is suspicious. He believes this seemed to be encrypted content. She asks him if he can solve it. He replies it's not a very difficult cipher and that he just has to write these letters side by side and decipher the cursed ring. It seemed to be the name of the product. Since it cannot be advertised blandly, it seems to have been encrypted. He adds this is probably a black market advertisement. She thinks cursed ring, huh? That makes it certain. Right here, exactly where Lunette was taken out by Thisbe in the original. She further thinks that in the original, Lunette was taken out by Thisbe at an auction house in the black market, and Lunette's death was described in detail because it was a major event that put Thisbe in trouble. She remembers black market was the day when Mariette's cursed ring became a prize. She knows she won't attack Lunette, but looking at the situation so far, the real culprit will definitely appear at this option. As Thisbe in the original novel probably thought that was the most convincing place to remove Lunette. She believes Thor probably thought she'd never go there and decipher it, and apologizes to him in her mind as she knows it's already been sold. The auction begins. Now, she thinks after all the trouble she went through putting the maid, who was supposed to be watching her, to sleep with a sleeping pill, and it's too peaceful for an attack to have occurred. Mashalengard, master of the Information Guild, notices the weird face she's making and asks her why is she making that face. Thisbe replies it just feels like nothing has happened at all. Mashalem replies usually that's normal, and from how he sees it, it seems like nothing will happen today. Thisbe reveals to us that the man following her is the Master Guild. As the lead, the protagonist of Monsterflower has many allies. Among them, the most frequently appearing ally was none other than the Information Guild disguised as a Cafe Zodiac. In the original, there was no connection between Zodiac and Thisbe. The position of a saint was fraught with many dangers, and she too needed strength. She approached Estelle before she formed a deep connection with Zodiac and eventually became the true owner of Zodiac. She knows, so now they are her hands and feet, not Estelle's. She thinks to herself it's foolish not to use something when she knows the original works so well. She then further reveals Mashallen knows what she's planning. He's one of her few allies. Thanks to this, she was able to obtain a black market invitation. He then says, Miss, it seems like nothing much is happening after all. Instead of watching, he suggests, why not they go buy something? He noticed she was also intrigued by the magical book earlier. She replies to him, there's nothing they can do about it. It's the same as obtaining magical books domestically. It's impossible, but if he's also distracted, then what should they do? Their original job is not to buy things. He says, since she's the one saying it, he will follow her lead, but he's not fond of it either. He wonders how someone could commit a crime in the middle of a crowded auction house, especially the son of a count. She ponders about what he said, and she knows it makes sense too. Normally, she wouldn't try to eliminate him in the middle of an auction house, however. Surprisingly, Thisbe in the original does it. She has a bag of coins in her hand, tempting him and taunts him. What makes it so unpleasant for him to be here? He replies he will watch diligently with all his heart and soul while his eyes are fixated on the coins. After taking the money, he promises her to stay near Lunette. She thinks, well, this is the last item of the day as she eyes the Mariette's cursed ring. Someone calls her name and she recognizes him by his voice and is shocked. It is Thor. He asks her why she is here. She tells him as she said in advance. This is her first time coming to the black market. He wonders why she is whispering. He asks her, is that so? And then whispers in her ear that he's happy to be able to spend his first time with her. He reveals to her it's his first time too. So he was a little nervous, and seeing a familiar face makes him feel relaxed. This thinks to herself that Thor is an angel and literally pictures him with wings behind his back, and the image is dazzling to her. She still feels bad about being caught by Thor, but knows Thor definitely wouldn't ask any more questions. Moreover, her first priority and the most important thing is Thor's safety. She asks him why did he come here. She's worried, as she knows this is a place where an attack may occur soon and that Thor might get in danger. He seems kind of reluctant to tell her the reason, but tells her anyway. He reminds her, didn't she see the advertisement for the auction last time? She replies she did. He mutters, well, she seemed interested in the ring, and there have been a lot of disturbing things lately. He wanted to give her a gift that would provide some comfort. She realizes Thor came so far for her just to give her a special gift. He thinks of her like that, but she cannot say that what she is interested in is not the ring, but she still thanks him for caring. She then asks another question about how did he find her. Even though her face wasn't visible, he tells her he heard her voice. She is surprised that he found her just by her voice alone. She thinks even though her voice got louder during the competition for the magical book, he recognized her with just that. She praises him for having a great sense, but he believes he can find her no matter where she is. She teases him that there is no way, but thinks this was Thor's weakness. She questions him will he be able to find her even if she doesn't say anything. Amusement coats his eyes as he replies sure because the sensation when he touches her is special. She thinks while she momentarily was tranced by his whispering voice, should she tell him not to whisper, even though the auction is still ongoing. Suddenly, she realizes why she has come here and that she was so dazed after encountering Thor that she couldn't pay attention to it and wonders where Lunette is and if he is okay. She knows the culprit will move now since the auction house is noisy and it would be best to avoid people's eyes. If everything went according to the plan, she was going to stay until the situation was over. But if things continue like this, Thor might get caught up in it. Thor expectedly raises his hand for her to hold as he tells her they told them to pick up their items over there. She asks him should they go together and thinks he's a kind person who came all the way just for her when they're only in an arranged marriage. So she will never let him get hurt. She holds his hand as a determined voice whispers in her mind, never. She doesn't want Thor to be in danger, but she won't stand like this. She spots Mulholland nearby in his disguise and commands him to go and prevent the attack. Amused, he replies as instructed and thinks a surprise attack feels stinging and thrilling. He asked again, just to be sure. She is instructing him to prevent the attack right and tells her she told him to leave such matters alone. Dealing with such matters is his expertise. She thinks that she leaves it to Mulholland, there shouldn't be any issues. She looks at Thor and thinks he came to this place because of her, and she wants to help him escape as soon as possible. Later, she thinks she hasn't done much, but she's exhausted. Perhaps she should have gone straight home. She originally planned to come straight home, but then Thor asked her out for dinner as he believed it's a bit disappointing to just meet briefly and part ways. She reveals in the end they indulged in dessert as well. She then decides to go wash up soon. But when she is passing by, she overhears some people talking that this is all for the Calichrist, and currently the lady is the existence that diminishes the favor of Calichrist merely by her presence. She wonders why is it so noisy, but it seems the other insects have arrived. She bears the heavy burden of being called a holy maiden by them. Since she was young, she had no choice but to engage in deadly studies and faced numerous assassination attempts. They may not be the nicest people to her, but it was different for the original Estelle. They mediated to have Estelle accepted into the Calichrist. Whenever she was in dire straits, they willingly learned the power of the family. One of the men says to give the holy sword of Calixtus to Estelle and restore honor. This thinks that they want to embrace the burden anytime, but now that she has become useless, are they trying to chase her away? She's determined that she will no longer listen to them all. When the door creaks open, they find out she is here and pause. Her grandfather says it looks like his granddaughter is back and that they raise their voice without knowing the time or place. Even if they hold him responsible, he won't have anything to say and orders them sharply to get out of his mansion immediately. and warns them that otherwise he will dig out their graves beneath his feet. The bald man looks weary but still manages to say that though it's late at this moment and he will withdraw, but he will make sure to get a definite answer next time. Thisbe thinks next time she hopes it's something worthwhile without any hesitation. The grandfather then asks her when did she arrive. She came back to tell him she is back. He says he sees it's late and asks where has she been. She tells him she went to fulfill a promise with Thor. Since he wished for privacy, she sent her carriage back first. She further adds due to the sudden breaking of her bracelet, it seemed to have disrupted their conversation. He says even so, he was considering making them leave soon. So it worked out well. More importantly, did she hear them? He asked the discussion that happened here. She wonders that he's asking her this all of a sudden and assures him he doesn't have to worry about her. He clarifies it's not about caring for her. She looks disappointed and says she has gone too far ahead. Hasn't she? She says a person who values the honor of family more than blood ties and that he is well aware of his qualities. He cuts her sharply, saying it's enough, and tells her to go inside and rest. Later, she thinks, why did someone like that hesitate to approve of Estelle's engagement? She also recalls his expression from earlier and wonders, why did he wear such an expression? Knowing it's a place she eventually has to leave still can't help but hold back emotions, yet there's a growing sense of anticipation. She just wants to hear affectionate words from someone on difficult days. Just like the day when the teacher sincerely praised her, or on the birthday forgotten even by herself in the moments of encountering a maid who presented a small handmade gift. She opened up her heart and expected kindness from others. She wonders if the person who spoke affectionate words did not approach her with feeling guilt about Thor, or if it wasn't Lunette who insulted her or the teacher who admired her wasn't desiring to sell her name, or if the pink cushion the maid had given was just a gift and wasn't laced with a deadly poison. Perhaps things would have been different. But then she convinces herself to not dwell on it any longer. She yawns, but tells herself it's not time to sleep yet. She needs to find out how things went with Mahalan, and she also needs to read the spellbook. She also reminds herself she also has to write a letter to Thor, letting him know that she is settling in well. But she thinks that if she misses a day, Thor will probably understand. Lath asks Thor why is he staring so intently at the paper. He replies it's nothing. After meeting with him, he always writes a letter to confirm his safe arrival, but he has yet to do so. He asks was that piece of a paper a new settler? It is a magical item that uses a single sheet of paper for communication. When one person writes on their own piece of paper, the same message appears on all the shared pieces. It can be considered a luxury item, costing as much as 1 year worth of taxes for the Count's domain. After a day, the writings on the new settler disappear. He mischievously asks if he is using such an item to write love letters. It's his first time witnessing it firsthand as well. He further questions, is it true that His Highness gave a gift to Lord Thisbe's granddaughter? He replies he did, and recalls her expressions from that time. She was panicking when she asked him, has this not been used yet? He hasn't touched it, right? He blushes and says it was cute. Lath then says if the person who used to leave letters every time has no news, it probably means they have already gone to sleep. So how about starting with his report for now? He says for him to go on. Lath informs him firstly, as he commanded, the gift has been obtained. The winning bid was 320 million gold. And about the target as he instructed, he attempted to attack the target when leaving the auction house, but there was an unexpected individual accompanying them. He says they were adept at manipulating shadows. So far as he knows, there's only one person on the continent with such abilities. The Guild Master of Zodiac. Thor leads to the conclusion that he can conceal the incident with shadows, so it was impossible for Lath to intervene. He says yes and apologizes for disappointing him. He says it's fine. It's not just anywhere. It's the Guild Master of Zodiac. He understands that there was no other choice. However, he is unaware why Zodiac is getting involved in this matter. That's a matter to investigate later. He needs to remove the vermin that tormented her. He lets him know he won't tolerate another failure, so that it serves as an example to others. Thisbe's eyes flutter open, and she gasps when she realizes she fell asleep. She communicates with Mahalan through the rock and asks if Lunette they returned back alive. He replies, of course, what does she think he is? And the young lady was right. There was someone lurking trying to figure out whether it was Lunette or not. He reveals they were hiding in the shadows following the target. However, when they realized they were noticed, they fled. Judging by their keen instincts, they were no ordinary people. She realizes they were skilled enough to see through these shadow arts. Shadow art is the ability to manipulate shadows. Shadows not only refer to the darkness caused by light, but also encompass all darkness. This implies that there are very few who can defeat Mahalan in dark places. She asked if someone capable of mobilizing such a skilled individual is involved. Frankly, she thinks she would rather leave them to die. He replies frankly he would rather be left alone to die, and says the actions of the preparator do have certain satisfaction to them. She nods and agrees that's true. She thinks, but even with Zodiac involved, they haven't found the culprit, which is a flaw. It suggests that the person involved may be more formidable than the culprit. She says it would be good to understand the culprit's attention. Why are they attacking people? Mahalan wonders if they could be fervent followers of her. She replies a naive answer, as with Estelle being publicly acknowledged as the true heiress, it's unlikely that there are people following her. It could be more credible to say their goal is to frame her and bring about her downfall. She hears some commotion and her attention is swiftly drawn to it. Mahalan has heard too, as he says it seems something has happened at the residence. She decides to go and check, and as she's descending the stairs, she wonders what happened. Grandfather rarely raises his voice unless it's something significant. She finds her grandfather declaring the Lady of Calix from the past to the present and moving forward is the only one who holds down the title of Thisbe. She wonders why is this being brought up all of a sudden. The pink-haired man requests his grace to just listen to him. He asks, is the lady currently beneficial or harmful to the family? He knows it well. It seems that he may be misunderstanding something. He says he never stated that he won't protect Alaire. He mentioned supporting Alaire in accordance with her Calix lineage. The man asks how is that not protection? And what use is such protection? To protect the lady in the name of Calix, doesn't he know that presenting her as illegitimate daughter is the best option? The grandfather says in his definition of best, is there no Thisbe in his reckoning? Living a lifetime, embraced as the child of trust, a lady of Calix. In fact, it's only been a month since he found out it's not true. The grandfather says even now the child is being labeled as a suspect and questions, has he ever considered how she might feel right now? She thinks grandfather, when is he going to? He has never uttered a kind word to her. But why now? She thinks he was always ignoring her, not even showing the slightest interest. Even if he thinks of her now, she has already decided to leave and decides to not listen any longer. Through the window, she sees the carriage and knows it's Count Gillette's. It was the day Estelle first visited Calix, wasn't it? She realizes something is off because, according to the original story, Estelle should be having a close relationship with Count Calix and wonders how things ended up like this. She knows for now her goal is to be expelled from the family. Since her current goal is to be expelled from the family, shall she lend her a hand? She knocks on the carriage's window and asks Estelle would she like to come out for a moment and talk with her.